Huawei has been selling phones in India since a very long time, and as a company, they are a big global player. In fact, they are the fourth largest smartphone makers in the world. Now, to gain a stronger foothold in India, the company is launching two new phones under the sub brand called Honor. The first is Honor 4X, selling for Rs 10,500, and the second is Honor 6 Plus, selling for around 26,000. But in this video, we'll be talking about the Honor 4X. This is Kushank for Pricebaba. Let's have a look at the Honor 4X. Hands down, the phone's design is very straightforward and simple. A rectangular slab guided by soft round edges. If you look at the phone from the side, the hardware isn't seamless and splits into two parts. A black piece of screen and glass forms one layer, and the slightly larger white piece of hardware with all the buttons and ports forms the other half. It's definitely a nicer and sturdier feeling phone when compared to other mid-range devices that come with glossier matte finished plastic bodies. The back of this phone reminds you of a strong wood crafted with a very subtle pattern. You can only feel this texture once you hold it in your hands. Even the Honor logo shines and feels like it has been beveled inside the back. But it's not exactly easy to use the phone with one hand, and expecting it to be comfortable would be foolish as it's a phablet at the end of the day. And if you need a big phone, then developing a habit to use it with two hands is your only option. Although I couldn't always use it with a single hand, it is praiseworthy that the power and volume buttons are placed well on the right side for quick one-hand access. Also, brownie points to Huawei for using Android Lollipop's default back, home, and recent apps capacitive buttons. Sadly, these weren't backlit, but I got used to remembering their placement over the time. And also, you'll definitely need to buy a good scratch guard as the phone has no sort of screen protection. With the mid-range phone comes an average display. I think we all should accept that as a universal fact. The Honor 4X packs in a big 5.5-inch display blasting off a decent 1280 by 720 pixels resolution, thus settling for a sadly average 267 ppi. It's not a bad display, but if your day revolves around reading or browsing the web on your phone, then the below 300 ppi won't help. The text isn't crisp and reading for long hours isn't a pleasant experience. While holding the phone up front, the display looks bright and good to eyes. But things get bad when you look at it from sideways or tilt a little. There's a warm tinge that appears and even makes it harder to judge the camera pictures with that tinge. Thankfully, the display is usable under direct sunlight even if you have auto brightness turned on. Under display settings, one can even tweak the color temperature to warm or cold. Just don't forget to hit the default button if you end up messing around here. Now my colleague Saif will talk about the camera.
The Honor 4X has a 13 megapixel camera with a second generation BSI sensor from Sony. Optics are coated with anti-reflective and anti-fingerprint coating. LED flashlight appeared white, but the shots taken are pale yellow. At 5.5 inches, the viewfinder is huge, but on the flip side, it gets hard to take photos on the phone. Talking about the output, the picture quality is brilliant in bright daylight. With some highlights blown in very bright conditions, it worked fine for the most of the time. It was a decent macro performer. HDR doesn't quite give the dynamics and it may leave you disappointed. Color reproduction is okay, considering it does stay a bit on a cool tone. The camera clicks sharp images, but because of the sharpened images, coupled with high ISO, they appear very grainy. Video mode only allows you to do two things: tap the area to focus and record. You can select some filters to suit your need. I love the fact that you can also enable focus tracking in video to keep the object completely in focus till it gets out of the frame. Very handy if you ask me. But I noticed that Huawei decided to keep the out-of-the-box shooting resolution at 720p. It was towards the end of my review when I noticed that all of this while I hadn't been recording in full HD. So make sure to turn up the resolution all the way to get good details out of the Honor. Output is decent. With perfect sound recording and sharp details, all you need to do is keep things in focus and you're good to go. To conclude, I think this is a decent camera for the average consumer who will use it occasionally.
Now my review unit ran on Android 4.4 KitKat with Huawei's own custom user interface called EMUI 3.0. Like all Chinese phone UIs, EMUI also doesn't have an app drawer. All your apps live on the home screen much like iOS. We've also seen this on Xiaomi and Lenovo phones. In general, the phone is bloatware free. All software elements are a mix and match of stuff borrowed from other phones. Like it has iOS style control center which can be accessed with a swiper from the lock screen. And also the camera app straight up looks like the iPhone camera app. It has themes to play around, but the app just has 6 themes right now, and the default theme is too flashy with gradients and ugly looking circular icons. It actually reminded me of iOS 7. The absolute waste and unusable app I found was Magnifier. It's basically a digital cropped in preview of anything you see live on the camera. I mean, why would even someone need this? But it's there. Now let's jump to the settings menu. You've got an option to change the home screen style, which has a simple phone mode. This might actually be helpful to older people who require bigger set of icons and simple interface to use the phone. Then there's Notification Manager, which will come in handy if you need to quickly restrict an app from sending notifications. The single most irritating thing on this phone. A single tap on the recent apps capacitive button does just nothing. Double tap also does nothing. But hey, a really long press will take you to the unintuitive screen of your last used apps. I'm used to swapping between apps, and this implementation by Huawei is just bad. Now dig inside the Honor 4X and you'll find a 64-bit Qualcomm Snapdragon 410 processor clocking in at 1.2 GHz with support of 2 GB RAM and Arduino 306 for GPU. Technically, the phone isn't utilizing the prowess of a 64-bit chip, but it should once it gets the Lollipop update. Even without that, the phone performs pretty well. I didn't come across any freezes or noticeably longer delays in transitions. In general, I felt that EMUI takes a bit longer to load apps. The small loading time became apparent as soon as I installed Google Now Launcher. With that launcher, apps and transitions felt faster. Even though Huawei's UI is light and bloatware free, it still isn't the fastest around. The Honor 4X handles casual games like Temple Run 2 and Subway Surfers just fine, but heavier games like Dead Trigger 2 got crashed and even stopped working. Also, while playing games like GTA and Real Racing Out found frame drops and stutters, so it's definitely not the best phone for gaming. Now, about the battery, I'm heavily impressed. In heavy usage, it lasted more than a day, and sometimes when I didn't use it much, the phone even lasted for 2 entire days. And in my video loop test, where I left a YouTube video on loop with full brightness, the phone lasted for 8 hours, which is just excellent. The 3000 mAh battery definitely is doing its job well. Plus, there's the ultra power saving mode, which keeps only basic call and message functions to use. With this mode on, it should actually last you for a week. It's a dual SIM phone with 4G support on both the slots, but I couldn't test it as I live in Mumbai where 4G network is yet to be deployed. But no complaints about 3G and call quality, it's all good. Huawei is selling the Honor 4X for Rs 10,500 exclusively on Flipkart. There are 2 other competitive phones in the same price range. The Yureka is selling for Rs 9,000 and Xiaomi's Redmi Note 4G is selling for Rs 10,000. Now if you ask me, I've personally used the Yureka, which definitely excels in terms of overall performance, and also it offers 16 GB of internal storage, which none of these two offer. Also, Yureka is the cheapest out of the 3. Now I'm not saying Huawei has built a bad phone. It's definitely a solid build quality phone, but it falls short of the competition. Thank you for watching. If you found this review helpful, don't forget to like, share and subscribe to our channel.